For the past 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, Nigeria has been having challenges that are beckoning and waiting for answers and solutions. That is why we are bringing to you our program, State of the Nation. And this is going to come up on our flagship program this morning on ITV. I am hereby inviting you to join me, Bola, your host, on State of the Nation, so that we can hasten the motions that brings national development. It's going to be a regular basis on Tuesdays. Make it a date with me. I'll be there waiting for you, and then we shall discuss Nigeria on an holistic level. Welcome back to your lofty program, State of the Nation, where we hasten the motions for national development. And like we do say, when it comes to national development, you're part of it too, because we are all in this together. It is our collective aptitude that is going to make Nigeria a better place. This morning, we shall dwell on the factor that gives us the governance. And what am I talking about here? I'm talking about politics. I keep telling people, don't you ever say I'm not interested in politics. You should be interested, because if you're not interested and somebody you do not like gets to power, you have no right to complain, because you did not exercise that your franchise, that your vote for the right man that you think can do the job. That is why this morning we're talking about all the bits and pieces in the political parties that at the end of the day generate the governance that we have. The topic we're having this morning is the effects of consensus without consultation in politics. With me in the studio is none other than my brother, my friend, Professor Abiodun Adeni from the Bayes University. You're welcome, my brother.
Thank you, my pleasure.
And then to you, our viewers, I would like to tell you this. It is to our advantage that we are having a professor, because not only is in academia, not only is he going to tutor students in class, he's going to tutor us on air. You can have a good laugh about that. Because the two words we are talking about, consensus is one word, consultation is another. It is a fusion of these two that has a factor in our politicking. It has happened lately, and honestly, it doesn't augur well for politicking. But let's hear it from Professor first and foremost. First and foremost, let me welcome you to the program.
Thank you.
Good. We're beginning to have cases of consensus candidates. And if my memory or my English serves me right, consensus means within a group of 2, 3, or 4 people, they all agreed to come together and say, let one of us be the candidate that will represent everybody. Why is it that this is not happening in our polity? You can give us a better explanation of the element of consensus, and at the same time, why is it that it is not happening in our polity?
Well, we need to first of all appreciate the fact that, anyway, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, I'm the one that is saying thank you.
That is very important before we start.
Okay, you're welcome.
I was saying that we need to first of all appreciate that the fact that consensus is just one process through which leaders can emerge. You know, the other process is direct primary. There's also indirect primary. And consensus is just saying that, okay, we have come to an agreement, you know, and we do not want to go to the ballot. We do not want to, we don't want voting. We trust in somebody. You know, we have confidence in this person, and we have all agreed, amicably anyway, that he should be the one to emerge. That's what consensus means. So ordinarily, consensus should be a process whereby anxiety can be doused, you know, tension can be minimized, you know, and contestation, the friction, you know, results to court process that often come through the ballot can be minimized, you know. So it has its own advantages. And maybe we should also make the point, you know, it's not been made anyway, I've not heard it really, you know, that consensus is integral to the Nigerian sociology, the African sociology, largely. So it just means that we're just bringing into a democratic experiment. When I say integral to it, it's just that how do we have, how do leadership positions, how do they emerge in the families, in the traditional institutions? They don't vote, you know. We believe in hierarchy, we believe in seniority, and we believe in understanding, initiated by the elders, the senior, you know. And that's why when Alhaji Abdullah, Senator Abdullah was going to emerge as APC chairman, you know, the voice of the president was very, very significant.
Of course.
Because he's the leader of the party, he's the most senior, and they allowed him to choose. So it just falls in line with the sociology, you know, of the African, the Nigerian man, you know, emerging from the way traditional institutions, you know, operate and the way family institutions operate. So if we are bringing it to bear into the democratic culture, I think it's a welcome development, as long as it's amicable, as long as it doesn't mean that we are criminalizing aspiration, you know, because it's also a slight departure from, you know, our tendency to ape and idolize everything that is Western. You know, our democracy is having problems in some circles, you know, because we just think that if it is not Western, it is not proper. Whereas we need to be creative, we need to be original in the way we
have to be innovative.
Yeah, we have to be innovative. We have to look at it in a way that is ingenious to us. If you look at some other very successful democracies everywhere in the world, system of governance around the world, they're not necessarily Western, but they are largely successful in their own way. If they are not successful in the politics of it, they are successful in their economies. How is Dubai being ruled, for instance? How is Singapore being ruled? How is China being ruled? We're not talking about autocracy here. We're not talking about dictatorship here. But we're just saying that it's okay if we come up, if we can successfully come up with a system that is embedded in our culture, in our patterns, in our particularities, you know, so that we can have some innovation rather than endless contestation that will lead to court processes that is also endless, you know, and eventually affect the business of governance, which is essentially to meet the yearnings and aspirations of the people. There are too many distractions, you know, in terms of when it comes to this fighting for offices. It's very, very distracting, such that people no longer even bother about the essence of governance, which is, you know, making people freer, happier, you know, and improving their standard of living. It's just about fighting in the courts and all of that. So if we can develop the consensus process through proper consultation, funded on amicable understanding,
agreements,
then of course there's nothing wrong with it really. But the problem is if it is imposed, you know, if it is enforced, then of course it runs against the grain of free will, which we do not ordinarily envisage.
Thank you, because along that juncture you kind of brought out my next line of question, which is a case of, even when we are talking consensus, there has to be that agreement between the parties concerned.
That's right.
Which in itself brings on the element of consultations. That is, if there are 10 people vying for a position, there should be consultations with them, either individually or in the collective. That, okay, like you run an inference to what Mr. President did. Mr. President said it. He flew a kite of nominating Abdullah Adamu as the chairman of the party. Then I guess he left the rest to the politicians to work it out, inform the other people about what should happen.
That's right.
I'm not trying to mention names of any political party here, but what transpired in Abuja lately was a case where some people, at the end of the, at the last minute, everybody came there believing that there was going to be a case for delegates to vote for them and the balloting and the rest of it. But some were shocked when they said, okay, this is what it's going to be. I have the notion of one of the candidates out there who said it loud and clear. If you wanted consensus, why didn't you call me earlier? Why didn't you talk to me earlier? I would have been gentleman enough to agree out there than to come and agree in public. But don't you think there's something wrong somewhere there?
Yeah, there's no process that does not have problem.
Of course.
Yeah, all the processes often have come up with their own original problem. If it was even direct primaries, there will have been problem. If it was indirect, there will still have been problem.
Yeah, naturally.
Imagine if they had
We're not
voted that
perfect.
day. Of course, there will have been disagreement. If you go by the character of the Nigerian politician, you know, there will have been press conferences. There will probably have been resort to court, and of course, there will be horse trading. There will be intrigues, negotiations, appealings, and all of that. It will still have happened. So we can probably just take this. And the fact that somebody feels that it's not been consulted, which is also very important anyway, because the philosophy of consensus envisages that that you will have been inclusive in your consultation. Yeah, you will have been integrative, carrying people along, so that you will not hurt their pride, their prestige, you know, their ego. Those things matter in the political process.
Of course.
So we can just take those limitations, you know, as part of the hiccups that come with consensus building. Overall, consensus building is about peace building as well. You know, it's about looking for a reasonable shortcut, you know, to achieving an end. You know, and I'm not justifying it anyway, but I'm just trying to problematize it, letting us know that it is not just antithetical to democracy. Neither is it, neither is this something that can hurt our democracy. If we can develop it properly,
using our own,
our own history,
parameters,
our own sociology, our own political experiences. You know, because elections that were held in 2019. There are still court cases over those elections. In some cases, you know, sometimes elections will be held 2-3 years after they are still being disputed while somebody is already in office. What time would the person who is in office have
to now come and
govern? So I mean, it can be very distracting.
What do
so
you
if we are saying that consensus can be the way out, where everybody will come to an agreement through negotiation, then why not? Why can't we try it?
What you just said now brings to mind what our late politician, Chief M.K. Abiola, said, which is very apt when you think in terms of consensus. Abiola said, there is no way you will shave a man's head
in his absence.
In his absence.
Yes.
There cannot be a consensus when the candidates are not there seated. In other words, you're shaving their heads in their absence.
Yeah.
And I believe, like you rightly said, we should try and infuse a lot of our local sociological tenets.
That's right.
Things better.
You know, because everything we do is just, we import everything. We are a consumerist system. We are very Western in our orientation. And democracy, it's something that is actually homegrown.
It has to evolve.
It has to evolve. And in trying to, it's fine if we are Western, if we pick the good, but it's also fine if we integrate that good, you know, into our own body politic, our own culture, our own originalities, you know. Why, for instance, do you think that traditional rulers don't emerge through election? Family heads, you know. I mean, it's something, there are two ways in which we can achieve something, you know. It's that it is achieved or ascribed, and both are legitimate, you know. Both are legitimate, you know. Traditional institutions, you will say, are ascribed, yeah, but within that ascription is an understanding. I think it has roots in history as well, you know. It has roots in history because not even slavery now, but colonialism, and of course, everything about the world is essentially Western. Either the media, you know, the economy, you know, even culture, you know. They are very populist in their orientation, and of course the media particularly is very, very powerful in terms of getting the rest of the world, you know, to just believe or to consciously or unconsciously follow things that are Western, you know. And you cannot really also fault them because most things that are Western, maybe quote and unquote, civilized, advanced, developed.
Because I really want to ask you, are we doing the wrong thing by
no.
them?
They have reasons to prove their advancement, you know, in terms of technological sophistication, in terms of standard of living, in terms of growth, in terms of development, and in terms of the presence of multilateral institutions in their domain, you know, and they have provided leadership over the years. Yes. So rightly or wrongly, a struggling economy like our own, struggling people, you are more likely to tune to the patterns of this part of the world. And that's what we see happening. But there have been resistances in other parts of the world, and it has paid off. Those resistances have not necessarily been confrontational, but it has emerged in the area of policy, in the area of their cultural and governance orientation. Of course, if we talk about Russia now, you will be talking about the extreme. But we can talk about the United Arab Emirates. We can see development, despite the difference that exists between their kind of political system and the Western political system.
But largely they copied the Western setting
in terms of economy. But when it comes to political system orientation, of course, the political system is traditional. And of course, it has not, there's no conflict anywhere. It's about understanding. So the way their leaders emerge is actually somewhat monarchical. And monarchical is subtle consensus too. And monarchy is subtly consensual. Because you agree, that this person is
our king.
Yeah, the lineage is one of kingship. They've been made to lead. So you do not go carrying the ground, except you just begin to.
No, we have them locally.
Yeah, that's right.
Our own kings, heirs, and whatever.
Yeah, but let's not miss the point that we also have monarchies in some of the Western countries. There's actually most of the Western countries have monarchies. That's right. But it depends on the role that they are playing now in terms of governance. But in some other countries, they are very visible in everyday governance, everyday administration of the state. So, but you can see originality in what they are doing. And the point we're making here is that to some extent, we too can try and be a little bit creative. We can try and be a little bit original. If it's going to be working for us, why not? If it's going to be a way in which we can reduce resort to court, what Femi Falana called tribunalization of election process. If it's a way for us to reduce it, why not? So that we can save time, reduce anxiety, reduce tension, and concentrate better on governance, good governance, which is the essence of contestation in the first instance.
That's it. I would like to take you back a little bit to one concept you prefer, and that concept is a fine one. From my own angle, and then I'm sure from the angle of some of our viewers back at home. When you said something about localizing our democracy, you ran an inference into our African culture that has to do with hierarchy, seniority, and the sociology of our democracy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I am looking at it because that is something we should imbibe more.
Absolutely.
Because these days, you will find out in Nigerian polity, there is that element of we have somewhere in our constitution that says not too young to run, and then a 35-year-old boy is coming up to say he wants to rule Nigeria. It is not impossible, really. But I want to toe the line of what you said, that there is that need for African cultural sociology, for us to imbibe it in our democratic
system. Yes, absolutely.
We have a problem.
That's why we're having a problem. You see, we are copying American presidential system, but first we are not even copying it well. In that system, you have two arms of the legislature in each state of the United States. You have the Senate and the House of Representatives in each state, and laws are different. Policing system is also different.
From state to state.
So many things are different, but that's not what we're doing here. So we just pick the one we want, and we're not even implementing it badly. I mean, in a very good way. So if we actually want to be true to ourselves, there are some good parts of our culture that we can pick and use to strengthen our democracy. Because we're still having problems. Our democracy is still largely fragile, still evolving. Yes, we have done well in 22 to 23 years, but there's still much to be desired. And that's why we're saying that whatever we can do, we can continue to do to strengthen it. Whatever mechanism that we can inject into it to strengthen it, particularly the endless resort to courts, to the judiciary. In some cases, it becomes so worse that you now even surrender the decision on who will rule to the courts. Look at what happened in Imo State. And we are in Bayelsa, in Zamfara. So it's not really.
People say that there are about 5 states in Nigeria or 6 states that have off-season gubernatorial elections based on court cases.
So how can you resolve those off-season elections? Constitutionally can never be resolved. There's no way you can resolve it.
Of course.
I mean, we don't want to think about the other way in which you can resolve it. So it's something that we'll continue to deal with. Imo State has joined the off-cycle election now.
Yes.
How many more states is going to join? So you begin to see haphazard, election where and it's going to can create problem for the electoral umpire as well, where there's supposed to be uniformity.
Let me throw you a call. You were talking in terms of African hierarchy in a democratic setting. At the back of your mind, would you like a 30-year-old president?
A 30-year-old?
In Nigeria, looking at the Nigerian context.
Let me tell you, it's not really about age. It's about wisdom and agility.
And the capacity.
And the capacity. I don't subscribe to age bracketing, saying that if you are young, then of course you know what you're doing. No, it's about intellectual. It's about acumen. Are you able to inspire, to motivate, to galvanize people? Are you healthy enough to think properly? To be logical? Are you fit enough? For the everyday rigor of the job? Those are the things that we should be, those are the parameters that we should be looking at. Not necessarily the number that we call age. Because we have seen in this country where young people have come into power and they've never been exemplary. We've seen them as governors. We've seen 38 years old as governor, 39 as governor. Yes, even in this democratic dispensation. We've seen 40-something as governor. There's one 40-something going all over the place now. We know what he's doing. I'm not going to mention him. And there are also people in their 60s and 70s who are exceptional. In the days of military rule, how old was Gowon when he became head of state? 32. And of all these... some of them in their 20s, Bola, Chief Awolowo, all of them, Olusegun Obasanjo, he retired at 42 or something like that. And of course, these people were achieved to a very large extent. Yes, it was a military regime, but they did their best even at those ages. And of course, sometimes too, you have also seen them being very rascally. And most importantly again, we're in a time, we're in the 21st century period of revolution, where there's revolution even in medicine. And because of that, people are now able to live long because of medicine. And if you are concerned for your health, there's increased health consciousness. People are living longer now. I mean, if they are enlightened, and sometimes people are living longer. So if you look at my mother of billionaire Femi Otedola did her 90th, and she was still very agile, talking, recognizing people. At age 90.
OBJ played football at age 85.
At age 85. Look at Professor Wole Soyinka. Look at him. So what are we talking about? Look, let's go to America. Look at owner of Afebabalawa University. He's 90-something. But look at him. You see him, he can walk faster than some young people. Yeah, so but then go to the Americas. Biden, most of them in the Senate, they're in their Nancy Pelosi. 81. And see how agile she is. So it's not really about age, it's about agility and fitness.
That is one conclusion I'm trying to draw. That factoring that element of African hierarchy in our sociological and our democratic setting, age shouldn't be part of it.
No, I don't think age should be part of it, really. Age can come in at the level of respect. Of course, as Africans, we respect another. You don't want to, because you just have this cultural belief that you two want to grow old. So
if you want to grow old, don't mess up as a person. There is still one factor that I want: the element of the culture and the hierarchy involved. The French call it as hierarchy, like Iran and influence to the United Arab Emirates, where the monarchy knows that this is. No need to go there. In our African setting, if there's an existing king, before even he dies, the crown prince is.
That's right.
So that element of hierarchy is there. And like you posited that this is something that is homegrown that we can infuse into the democratic setting. That Mr. A is there. There is a positioning that was negotiated for Mr. B to come over and then take over. I believe this is an African thing.
It's
try and imbibe.
No, let's even expand it a little bit. It's not essentially African, really, but it's common to us. You find it in every. The Queen has been there for many years. Why do you think people just respect her? It's ascription. The position is ascribed to her, and because of that, the average British person has a lot of respect for the Queen, for the monarchy. So it's ascription, and you just it's a constructed thing. You just believe, you defer to her. So it's a matter of construction, but that construction has not. It's not at the level of everyday governance, even though the Prime Minister is supposed to go to her every day. That's right. That's one of their process, you know. But in our own system, it's even much more pronounced because you say we are a little more traditional than this was. So because against that background, now let's even look at it. How do corporations, successful corporations, how do they elect their leaders? How many of them go for election? Corporations, successful corporations that are even richer than Nigeria, richer than South African countries. How many of them go for election? It's true.
Hierarchy.
You just look at it. Okay, this person. Sometimes they even choose somebody who is, because you have the capacity, and people have that understanding. But let's be careful. We're not saying that contest is wrong. We're not saying that. We're not saying that. You know, you telling the people what you want to do, how you want to do it, assuring them, campaigning
for their vote.
Well, we're not saying it is wrong. What we're only saying is that, you know, in our own case, it has become a problem. And if there's a valued way for leaders to evolve, you know, why don't we think about it? That will make sure that the process is less rancorous than what we've been seeing, which is very, very distracting to good governance and the ability of leaders to concentrate. You know, if APC did it, despite the imperfections, you know, there were so many reasons to criticize it, you know, but if another party wants to do it and they have an understanding, they can make it better so that everybody will feel, nobody will be complaining and say, yeah, we'll keep learning. Why not? After all, we're still learning in a democratic experiment.
That's right,
yeah.
that's right. And to you, our viewers out there, like I told you earlier, we have a professor in the studios and he has been able to hand out some tutorials to us. Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. But let me encapsulate what he told us, what we've been able to learn from him. One of the factors is what he said about the African culture that has that element of hierarchy, that has that element about our social well-being, that if we can afford to infuse this into our democracy, we will go far. The Western world we're trying to copy, they're good to go because economically they are moving forward and we are still developing. So basically we can learn. But in most cases, we just pick a little bit of what they do and the rest we abandon, we jettison somewhere. But I am thinking in terms of this total lesson he has given to us in terms of our cultural setting. There is always that element of hierarchy in our cultural setting, which is synonymous with the case of consensus, which is synonymous with what we want to do as a people. Let us learn from ourselves. Let us take our democracy to the grassroots and evolve into something very big. If you remember what our topic for today is, effects of consensus without consultations.